Hi, friend. Welcome back to Debrief with Danny. One of the things that I am starting to love about the podcast is how there is a story arc forming. I don't know if you've noticed it also, but in our recent episodes, so the first one we talked about leadership as a mindset, and then we unpacked the difference between leadership and management. And in our most recent conversation, our guest made a very strong case as to why organizations must, again, the key word is must, invest in their leaders and their people. So if you haven't watched them, feel free to check it out. But tonight, I'll take you to a conversation wherein we talk about culture and the capabilities gap, what it is, what it really means, and why it is important. So our guest tonight, his name is Kevin Nera, and he made a bold shift from the government service to the private sector. And today, he leads a team with one big mission, and that is to eliminate toxic workplaces. O, diba? Sana talaga ma-achieve nila yung mission na yan because nobody deserves having a toxic workplace, diba? So Kevin has been a student of mine before, but honestly, like at this phase of my life, I feel more like his student. So let's get right into it. To start it off, just to give the audience also a bit of context, can you describe yourself or describe your work perhaps in 3 adjectives?
Adjectives. Pwede bang words instead of adjectives?
Okay lang sentences if that would be easier. Sige.
Sure. Sige. So, hi everyone, I'm Kevin, and the way that I describe my work is really a facilitator. I like the Filipino word tagapagpadaloy. Whether I'm doing trainings, strat plans, or being a member of the board, whatever hat I'm wearing, I always remind myself na I'm there as a facilitator. So that means sometimes I've served to remove obstacles to ideas, obstacles to mindsets, obstacles to skills when I'm wearing my consultant or my trainer hat. But sometimes it also means na I'm there to ask questions that get people, which is where I think my background as a philosophy major comes in. Because a lot of people ask me, saan mo nagamit yung philosophy background mo? You're doing HR work, you're doing strat plans. I always say na my role is to bother people and leave them with more questions. That's how I describe myself.
Asking questions, that's a skill also, no? Is it something na you have developed over time, or where is it coming from? Kasi diba we see like leadership best practices na parang it's always about asking the right questions, but then how would you know if you would have asked the right question or not?
I would say na I've always had this natural inclination to learning. I think that natural inclination to learning has always been my motivation. And as someone who wants to learn, I think that that's where I developed the habit of asking questions. Originally, it was questions to myself. I think that's where the philosophical orientation comes in. And then, because I'm so in love with learning, sabi ko, I want to spread that love of learning to other people. And then that's where I developed my love of teaching. But as I went through my journey, even as early as college, sabi ko, dati pangarap ko maging professor. And then what I've noticed about the professors I really admire and get along with is that they teach a lot, they know a lot of things. But more than that, what really made them stick is they ask questions that really bother you. And I think I developed, they bother you, na hindi ka makakatulog. And then I realized na that's something I want to do in my life. And I guess what changed or the new ones that happened as I went along in my career is that I've started to new ones that industry questions, not just the personal ones. And I think that's where my love story with strategies started entering. So, depending on the context, it will focus on what what is the organization trying to do. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
that it was always what's the purpose of you in your life. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's the evolution. And I don't see it as parang dito nag-start yung philosophy tapos dito siya pumunta sa leadership and strategy. I see it
Right.
as we continue coming from the same love of learning, learn to teaching.
Grabe, may relationship ka rin pala with strategy. Ako rin super love ko ang strategy, sobra.
Yeah.
Yeah, pero me, well, I noticed you mentioned it's always like what your question is. Me naman, ang inclination ko is why.
Mm-hmm.
Why are things this way? Why? Parang, I remember when I was a kid, like my mom would always be bothered about me questioning na, why is the sky blue? Why is the... Pero mga ganun stuff. But then, so, you mentioned a lot of things. So, you mentioned strategy, you mentioned leadership, you mentioned training. From your philosophy major, how did that love story start?
I guess similar to your story kanina na you always ask why to the point na ay siguro napapagod na yung mga kasama natin, no? Um, I always didn't just want to accept explanations. Na pag tinanong ko, "Oh, bakit ganun?" Parang, okay, but tell me more. And I've always had this idea na meron pa bang something more to it? When I was in high school, I think my inspiration was, at the time, Rizal. I like the works of Rizal. And that was, I think, what made me want to do strategy and leadership was this idea na why are things the way they are? Can they be better? And that was also a big factor why my early career was in government. Because I was thinking na why are a lot of people suffering when it doesn't have to be that way? So that was my initial entry point. And then, siguro as I went into my career in government, one of my assumptions there was I had to be in government to be able to alleviate suffering. And now that I'm outside of government and working with a lot of organizations, something that I realized is that the question of suffering can be alleviated by people in government, in the NGO, in the non-profit sector, but also the private sector has a role in it. Of course, um, dati, strong belief ko, yung mga nasa private sector, they only care about profits. Hindi true, profit is a big motivation, but I also see the limitations of government and where the private sector can come when it comes to what it solve. So I'm still in the space of trying to figure out how to alleviate suffering, but the framing is what's the value that organizations and people can bring. Help us.
I think we're similar in that sense because when I was finishing my master's degree, so we were asked to do a capstone, diba? And then the capstone, parang you have to pick a target customer that and then identify their problems and then develop a solution for it. Ganyan. So me,
Mm-hmm.
of course, parang yung na-pick namin na customer was the Gen Zs.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of, when we talk to them, like really, really talk to them, parang the problem was really more of, they really find it hard to see a bright future, which relates to the suffering that you just mentioned. And I remember myself crying pa when I was reviewing all the interviews because really it's filled with anxieties, it's filled with, I don't want to say hopelessness because that's like really borderline, but you can really feel that in the pressure to them. And So with that, develop solutions, and yung na come up namin is really how do we make them parang see beyond what the current environment gives them. So it's an ongoing iteration of that solution. But I see your point on the suffering. Pero very interesting yung you started in the government and then now you're in the private sector. How are those two different?
Um, I could go on about this for a long time. Um,
So,
so
buong
when I
episode
was
na
in
pala siya.
government, yeah, when I was in government, so I was with two organizations. The
Mm.
first was Commission on Higher Education. And
Mm.
the big issue right back then was the K to 12 transition.
Right.
That was 2016. And my role there was how can we help our teachers get an allowance during the time that they will not teach school. Kasi ano yung target namin doon is yung mababakante ng tuturuan. And
Mm-mm.
the question there was, you don't want to just give dole outs. Instead, what we want to do is how can we make something good out of this issue? And so the project that we were handling was give them scholarships,
Mm.
give them opportunities to immerse themselves in companies. Nawalan ng tatrabaho yung mga teachers back then. So we
Mm.
wanted to give them scholarships and immersions in companies. And I think that's where my journey with um, giving talent development to people started inadvertently in that policy and program role. And then when I moved in 2017 to the Office of the Vice President, I was in charge of strategy, targets, and that's when I realized na I think there's a lot of good and hardworking people in government. But maybe one of the challenges is in the targets that they are trying to accomplish. I feel that a lot of people there are busy, but because the targets are not clear, it doesn't automatically translate into being productive. And when all of the data, Excel files, ito na naginip na ako ng Excel because of all of the metrics and dashboards. Sabi ko, I want to be in talent development. I want to help people learn and develop their skills. And so that experience in the government gave me a very solid foundation. Combined with, and this is something I'm really always grateful for, great mentors who were ethical people and who were really good at their craft. And
Mm.
as I transition into the private sector, I think na the skill set and the values that I developed in the government was something that I bring. And what basically my role now is as a trainer and consultant, instead of just giving value to one organization, I'm able to give that value to different organizations in the private, non-profit, and government sector. And the main difference would probably be the speed at which things get done.
Talaga?
That's one.
Mm.
The speed.
Mm.
And then the second, I think, is structural in nature. Um, I what I recognize is that government institutions, because of how they are structured, they are not meant for innovation. They are meant for scale. They are meant to have a more conservative approach. Find the thing that works and then scale it up. In contrast, there's more room for trial and error and innovation in the private sector because we're not constrained so much by rules and the need to always adopt I call it a deficit mindset. Deficit in the sense na the primary focus when I was in government was always cost savings. How can we save on cost because we're using tax people's money? If your primary mindset is that, the
Correct.
range of options you're looking at is limited compared to the private sector na what's the need that we're trying to address and how can we translate value into profit. That fundamental motivation and the corresponding constraints, I think what results in the different manifestations of government and private.
So it's really okay, what I understood was one, mindsets, and two, budget. Mm-hmm. But okay, sige. If we're talking about mindsets that would relate to the budget, is there a way na you would be able to shift the mindset of someone? And if so, would that be a long process?
This is now where the philosophy comes back in.
Yes,
Is it possible to change other people's mindsets? Of course, the answer is yes. Will you be able to change it to its core? Probably not. Based on personal experience and a lot of conferences I've attended in philosophy, meron tayong parang if mindsets are like an onion, there are some layers that are more amenable to change. Probably your preferences, probably your favorite shows, and maybe sometimes when it comes to decisions in the office, the day-to-day decisions. But there are some mindsets that are so fundamental or so integrated into the core of who we are as a person that it would take either great trauma or inspiring moments that will make you shift your perspective. Case in point, for example, why is it so hard to change people's preferences to political candidates? No matter what data points you share. I would believe na it's because the candidate that people choose is a reflection of who we are and sometimes a reflection of our self-worth. So when someone comes in with a bunch of data telling you na, ay, mali yung kandidatong iboboto mo because of 1 to 10 data points. They're not hearing the data point. They're hearing na, so you're saying mas mababa akong tao kesa sa'yo. That's why a lot of the cognitive attempts to convince people to change their votes fail. Because there's a very strong emotional component. And I think is something na mas malakas in a Filipino culture as compared to probably our Western counterparts.
So we really do choose based on our unconscious bias.
It is shaped by our unconscious biases, definitely. That's why who do we vote for? We vote for people now we see some sense of resemblance. Why do we not like, sabihin natin, no, economists? When we see that a politician is an economist, who actually votes for them. And the common person would say, ano ba yung economista? I don't know anyone who is an economist. I don't even know what they are. Baka sila nga yung may dahilan bakit ako naghihirap at ang mahal. And in contrast, why are some politicians, let's say Vico Soto, why is Vico Soto so appealing to people? Aside from, of course, the looks, which plays a big part, and the platform and the advocacy. If you look at him and see him as a person, I think people find him relatable. And this is something that experienced politicians are able to leverage. Kaya nga, I remember one professor before sabi niya, bakit si GMA maraming boto sa kanya? It's because GMA speaks a lot of languages. And being able to speak the language of the voter base is very strong. Has a very strong appeal because they're creating a sense of identification na hindi ako iba sa iyo.
Right. And that's really, okay, so again, supporting the claim that yun nga, leadership is really about resonance, relatability, and it's really about the people. Because in our last episode, so our guest talked about how the relational aspect of it. Before, the traditional term was either you are relational or authoritative or direct. But then now, the relation aspect we call it EQ, or emotional intelligence. And right now in strategy also, very big trend yung hyper localization,
Mm.
right? So parang how, from a leadership na yung perspective voice on a bird's eye view perspective, the challenge really is how you always ground yourself to your people, di ba, no? And have you ever had those moments na, kasi it's hard it's hard to switch yung mental or the cognitive side of it. Have you ever had those moments, and what did you do about it?
Yeah, I've had a lot of moments like those because if you describe my career, it's probably called change management. Especially if you're in my context, when I entered in government, I was very young, and all of my experience is practically transforming an organization from logbooks to dashboards. That's how I describe my personal journey. And I remember having to convince a lot of our senior managers, senior both in terms of tenure and age, bakit tayo maglilipat from logbook that security guards use to measure performance to a Google Sheet. Di ba pwedeng ganun na lang? Sanay na kami dyan eh. And it took years to convince. And this ties up with your question kanina. How long does it take? I think we only made progress really in year 2 in transforming cultures. Because for you needed to show value and value from their perspective, and you also need to make it easy for them to adapt that change. And to the question that you mentioned kanina na what would leaders do in relation to this example of changing mindsets? My favorite part in strategy is actually the most non-technical part, which is for me the mission, vision, and values, which I think is a lot of people take for granted. It's those shiny words in the wall that you memorize kasi may audit. So favorite activity namin with executives is, can you clap your hands if you can recite your vision and mission word per word? And then they start laughing because no one can clap their hands. Yeah, unfortunately, no. And that's I think the role of the leader, because if you want to change the mindset of your people, if you want to change culture, we need to be able to answer the question of why is the organization existing in the first place. And from a talent management perspective, when you're dealing with millennials and Gen Zs, you need to be able to communicate in a simple place as possible. What is the good that our company is? So, this is very fresh. Kahapon, I facilitated a session with a government agency, and I asked them, if this government agency did not exist, what would change? And then, based upon isip sila, di ba? O nga, no? Anong mangyayari? Kasi mahal ng tax na binabayad natin sa kanila, di ba? And when they were able to realize na, oh nga, no, this is the good that we do, then it becomes easier to communicate to people. And I have a test for this. My test is, if you're in a family reunion and someone asks, anong ginagawa niyo sa company niyo?
Yeah.
Your answer should be the good that you're bringing to the world, which should be captured by your mission statement. And what's good with that is, regardless of the actual position that you have. So let's say I'm in finance, and I can say na, oh, I'm here because I'm trying to eliminate toxic workplaces. So it now goes beyond the function or the job title and focuses on what's really the good that I'm trying to do in the world. So yeah, that's my long answer to the question of changing mindsets.
Wait, let me digest that a bit. You touched on culture, you touched on vision, mission, you touched on the sole reason why the company exists. Um, I want to zoom in on the culture aspect because I have sat in business plan sessions wherein leaders actually want to design the culture, but personally, I feel like it's not something that you write, but it's more of something that you commit that you will behave this way. So in that context, and based on what you have seen so far, is culture, what are the other misconceptions about culture, and do you have any signals or telltale signs that this company has a good culture or bad culture, or in Gen Z's term, it's a toxic workplace?
Well, I think the first misconception, the idea that you are going to design a culture, sometimes may presupposition na walang existing culture. So I think that that's an area that people get wrong. There's already an existing culture, whether it is intentional or not, it exists.
Yeah.
The culture always has multiple levels. There's a culture as a country. There's a culture as an organization. And then there's a culture at the team level. So sometimes the disconnect happens na bakit pag kami sa department ko, kunyari in the IT department, masaya kami pag kami magkakasama. But pag kasama na natin yung ibang divisions, but parang nag-iiba na yung kultura or people. That's because you're already operating in a meso and a microculture that's sometimes conflicts with one another. So how do we know if there's already something wrong with the company culture? There are many definitions of culture, and the one that I like the most is culture is what gets rewarded and repeated in an organization. Culture is what gets rewarded and repeated. So, for example, if I enter the physical office of a company, the first thing that I look at is someone going to greet me when I enter the space? Something as simple as that. Because if no one greets me and it feels that this is a transactional office, that's already a signal na mukhang iba yung trato or baka possible na toxic yung company na ito. That's one. And the greeting can be in the form of, if I message their page, what is the reply that I get? If I talk to someone from their customer service, what is the nature of the conversation? Other signals of culture for me is when you get to meet with the people in the room, what do they call you? Do they call you with their titles? Do they call you with your first name? And this is actually one signal that I get to government yung kausap ko versus private. How important are titles to them? Because in government and academe, doon mo makikita talaga yung high power distance culture ng Philippines na when you refer to someone, you have to respect their authority or you have to respect na prof, assistant prof, very particular sila dyan. Or si direct.
Prof?
Well, it's a wide spectrum. It depends on the university. Yeah. But some people are very sensitive
to titles talaga. Well, I think, okay, this is a personal opinion, I guess, but it's really more of a lot of a person's worth is often tied to the title din kasi. And it took really years and hard work to earn that title din naman. But I see both sides to it. But to me, really, like now, it's really more of what is the value that you bring to the table more than the title itself. Because right now also, it's more parang whenever I I work with leaders every day
Mm.
since the beginning of my career, and
Yeah.
what I've noticed, and it's something that it's really not, hindi mo siya malalagay into paper eh. And,
Mm.
but it's very evident when you see it. And right now I call it the unseen system.
Mm.
So that's
What's an
where all,
example of that?
huh?
Anong example na nakita mo?
So the unseen system, okay, meron siyang parang pillars.
Mm.
So one could be the influence,
Yeah.
and then second would be the politics, power
Mm.
dynamics, and then the third is yung mga silent workers.
Yeah.
So when you put that in the business plan, it's hard because that's something na really critical to execute your strategy. So with your strategy kasi, I've seen it in 4 layers. So you have your actual business strategy, which includes your business
Yeah.
model, ganyan. And then the second one would be your technology architecture. So that enables your strategy. And then the third is your culture. But then the pinaka baba niya is how decisions are made. So that's how I look at an organization. And really, parang when you observe lang, as in if you just take notice with how people move, ganyan, it's really evident, it's really apparent. And that's why na skew ako into talent development, into building people. Kasi that's like, for me, the root cause of why, let's say, a strategy is not being executed the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Similar, I have this similar concept na organizations have the org chart as is written, and then the shadow org chart, which is the true org chart, is basically the mapping of power and how decisions are made. And that layer, quote unquote, no, of how decisions are made, that is actually one of the first things that people identify in a culture. That's something that becomes apparent as early as onboarding or maybe even in the interview process. And that's why whenever someone implements a new technology solution, there's always this tendency, diba? And a lot of organizations nga are struggling with their digital transformation.
Yeah.
X.0 na, diba, sa dami ng version. It's because they think that it's a technology problem. It's actually a people issue.
Right.
It's a power dynamic, a culture issue. And my go-to question whenever I observe that is, whenever there's a decision, who wins, who loses, and who's not affected. I think now if leaders are mindful of that, and proponents are more mindful of that, then the next steps become clearer because you know who to approach and how to approach. And sometimes there will always be losers. So you make a decision. Is the trade-off worth it? Or is there something I can give para makabawi dun sa magiging negatively affected with this proposal that I've had?
Correct. It's always the trade-off. Have you ever had a client na you presented the trade-offs, you presented what could happen, ganyan, but then hindi pa din? Like,
it's part and parcel of anyone in an outsourced provider perspective. Even when I was internal HR, I mean, every training is practically a proposal.
yeah.
And the answers would range from no, because I don't believe in the idea, or not now, I like the idea, but it's not feasible. Yes, but can we modify a bit kasi may isisingit ako. And then yes, run it as is. Very rare yung yes as is. There is always an area of negotiation. Kaya nga, in our recent internal strategy, what we did was, gumawa kami ng very consultant, gumawa kami ng matrix of levers, indifferent, bashers. Hindi naman bashers, yun talagang term. But what
Uh,
we've come to realize is that the approach of proposing a solution or proposing value will have to differ depending on where your audience is. Kasi sometimes it feels frustrating to pitch something na talaga pinaghirapan
yeah.
only for it not to be approved because
Mm-mm.
mali pala yung understanding ko itong
Correct.
pinanggagalingan ng user. Parang babalik ka ulit talaga sa empathy.
Empathy talaga. Pero bakit, alam mo, sometimes I wonder about these things na it 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 feels simple,
Hmm.
but it's not. And that's really the frustrating part in any organization, I would say.
Mhm.
Diba?
The way I try to rationalize it to myself is, number one, I always think na the other party is coming from a place of goodness. So, assume positive.
Yeah.
The second is, I try to understand saan ba nanggagaling yung frustration and goals nila. Because sometimes people behave in this manner, pero hindi actually clear sa kanila what their frustrations and goals are.
That's
And
true.
then the third thing I try is to play around with the framing. Because I think na a solution can be framed in so many ways. I
Right.
think marketers and comms people know this very well.
Mm.
Sometimes kailangan mo lang mahuli yung kilite or yung tamang frame, pitch it.
Mm.
Then once na okay na yung frame na nakuha mo, then execute it as you would want to execute it. And then convince them later na, o tingnan mo, this is actually what's going to happen. I know you had your doubts at the start, but because we are clear in where we want to go, we got there. It's just na there were some steps along the way na hindi klaro sa atin. I want to go to EDSA, I want to go to C5, pero at the end of the day, parehas naman yung pinapuntahan natin. And happy tayo.
Lahat naman pupunta sa BGC. But do you have any exciting projects that you're working on right now?
Exciting projects. The first thing that came to my mind was too many to mention.
That's good.
It's a good season for us. We have lots of projects lined up. A design thinking course in May, a data insighting and storytelling in June. And I think now when July onwards starts, that's going to be that season for companies na Q4 yung kanilang dapat matapos na yung budget.
Yeah.
But at the same time, dahil the calendar year is always January to December or July to June. Q3 is also the time when quarterly reviews and performance reviews of companies in different calendars. A lot of things lined up and hoping always that we can provide value to our companies. And kami naman, we don't like actually giving parang off-the-shelf solutions. Kasi not every problem requires a hammer. Not every problem is a nail. So, what we want sana is to have that exploratory call at the start. Because then, when we have a better understanding of your frustrations, your goals, and we love the word co-create. We co-create the future that you want for yourself, for your company. I think that's when meaningful relationships start with our partners.
Yeah. Relationships. Very interesting word. Because in business, it's always a transaction.
Not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. That's true naman. That's true. I'm trying to digest everything that you said about culture and talent development. I have a question. So, why is it that you think? Okay, so inask ko rin to dun sa previous guest. na, diba, you do strat planning also. So, how it usually goes is you set the vision, mission, and then you identify your priorities, initiatives, set the targets. And then, I don't know about you, but to me, it's always the org development or the talent development comes last, or like the assessment of the capabilities of your people comes last. But then now, I strongly feel like it should be vision, mission, the capabilities of your org, and then your priorities, initiatives. Tapos, concurrent yung talent development on an ideal world. But then now, why do you think na the capabilities always comes last?
Yeah. My simple answer is because lots of people in management roles don't understand how to appreciate capabilities or how to address it. It's not something like a new IT system or a new building na if I put money on it, it will solve itself. So I think that the aversion comes from first and foremost a lack of understanding or appreciation of the role of talent. You give lip service that talent is our greatest asset and so on and so forth. But when you ask them, okay, so how do we take care of that asset, or how do we and then people would go, show me the financials. I think that's one. That's the first. I think it's changing in some organizations, and this is an advocacy of ours as well, that your HR people, diba, they need to have a seat on the table. That seat's not going to be given to them. So our CHROs, our chief talent people, chief talent officers, they need to be able to speak the language of business. So that's what. Ano yan eh, both sides yung mag-work. On the one hand, kailangan magbigay ng more attention of existing leaders. Sa kabila, kailangan yung HR leads natin, our talent people, also are able to speak about returns on investment or the financials. And this is where a lot of HR people are really struggling. You can talk about people all day, but when you ask them, anong translation yan sa kita o sa top line? So that's number one. Number two is, at least kami, when we do our strat plan, we actually don't start with the mission and vision. What we actually do is start with the external environment, long-term external environmental trends. And I guess because we're coming from a talent background, aside from your trends in AI, trends in policy, trends in tech, and sa PESEL, isa sa hina-highlight namin is yung trend ng people. And people internally. So one of the trends we always emphasize to people is what we call the talent war.
The talent what?
The talent war. May gera for talent.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gallup recently released its state of the global workforce report. Did you know Philippines is top 1 in Southeast Asia in daily loneliness?
See?
Top 1 in daily loneliness, in top 2 in daily stress or anger, and then top 3 in one of those. And so those data points that are given at the external environment analysis level. And then when we do the internal environment analysis, doon namin pinapasok yung existing level ng capabilities na meron tayo. So for us, what we actually like doing is para hindi galing from a vacuum yung capabilities. We ask people to reflect, what were your accomplishments last year? And then from there to extract what capabilities of the organization made those accomplishments possible. And then dun nila nare-realize na, okay, we are already good at XYZ. And that's working for us. So dun na nasisingit si na-infiltrate quote and quote si talent. And then the next step is look at the existing capabilities that are present. And then compare that with the external environmental factors that we're observing. Pag kinonect ba natin yung strengths natin, will they be enough to address all of our existing weaknesses?
Mm-hmm.
And then doon nila nare-realize, oh, doon pala yung capability gap na wala tayo. Kasi yung capabilities na meron tayo are good for the present trends.
Yeah.
Eh, kung may trend ka na AI, may trend ka na sustainability, may trend ka na cybersecurity.
Correct.
Tapos, wala sa capability menu natin yung any of those. And that's when they realize, strategic driver pala yung capabilities and talent development. Because if we don't develop those, leader tayo ngayon, but who knows, 2 to 3 years from now, baka hindi na tayo dito.
That's true. And I like that you focus on the capabilities part because I have seen business plans that yan talaga yung wala at all. Like, as in, I will not, that's the, like, wala talaga, as in zero. Parang, okay, ito initiatives, ganyan, priorities natin, these are the targets and the budget, and then, you look at, okay, but sino yung mga mag-execute ito? Are they, we have the right capabilities to do so? As in, skills gap.
I think a big factor there is probably a lot of the people who have MBAs and are in charge of strategy come from a dominantly finance background.
True.
From
marketing.
Finance, marketing, business dev background.
Mm-mm.
I guess that's what shapes our approach to strategy as well. Is that for us, talent is at the forefront. It's not an afterthought. Yeah. Parang sa amin nga, the way we approach finances are, the financials are a result of what you do with your talent.
Yeah.
Your talent can do combined with the strategies. For us, I think the standard is, ito yung financial goal natin, sa tayo mag-i-invest, mas problemahin natin pagkatapos yung tao. Parang, paano mag-translate yung investment mo to results? And last priority mo yung tao.
Totoo. I'm so glad. I'm so happy to be meeting people who are aligned.
With a very different background. Yeah, and that's also something that I appreciate when I joined B2C, when I took on as an AIM, and even as a consultant, because every client is a new industry. So, in as much as they learn from us, we learn from them. And siguro that's what got me into this field. Sabi nung mentor ko sa akin, at tanong yung mentor ko after government, anong gagawin ko sa buhay ko? Sabi niya, madali ka kasing mabore, try mo maging consultant at trainer para kada client ko.
It's
may
different.
bago. And it also is self-serving kasi nga, learner ako.
Yeah.
So, I like new things. I get bored if I do the same thing over and over again.
We're the same.
Quick kwento na lang. I really love yung business strategy game that we had.
Yeah?
In class. Because I'm coming from a talent background. 2 of my groupmates were coming from a strong finance background. Lagi niyang tanong, pag ginawa natin yung decision na yan, how will it affect our margins? That for me is a blind spot because my priority is people. Sa kanila, they always bring us back to margins. And so when we balance those perspectives, we won. Kasi we had good people perspective while also cognizant na huwag natin kakalimutan, meron tayong hinahabol na results. So, the mix of perspectives is vital. If your leadership team are all accountants, marketers, IT people, and no one has that people lens, it's likely they would say, mag-AI na lang tayo, kalimutan na natin siya.
Totoo. Well, I will not say anything. I will end it right. I love this conversation. It takes a while for me to digest things that you said. But all the signals for me is clear. Kasi ako, baliktad ako. So me, I really started from a very generalist view. As in corporate planning, ganyan. And then, I've always, like my mentor would always tell me, no, one day you would pick a specialization, ganyan. But then to me, parang, it's really hard for me to, if you put me in, let's say, marketing or operations, it's gonna be hard because I always see the big picture by default. So parang, it took a while for me to just be in, let's say, within the lines of that function. So that's why I took innovation, because I thought, if I can't go, diba, if this is strategy, dapat lalalim ka. So if I can't go this way, I should go this way. So that's why I said, maybe I'll take innovation. So that's the next step to strategy. But then, as I course through that innovation journey, parang dun ako nadala into people, which grounds me back to the realities of it. Like, your organization is only as good as your systems and your people. So, parang...
I would even go far as saying na your systems are only as good as your people.
That's true also.
Because I know a lot of organizations, they try to implement the best practices only to realize na hindi siya swak sa tao namin. And best practices are, I like what a speaker said during our last national convention. Sabi niya, frameworks are often treated as guardrails. Bawal kang lumagpas dyan, makakulong ka dyan. Sabi niya, don't treat frameworks as guardrails, treat them as handrails. They're there to support you, and then the moment that they become too constricting, then throw them away. I guess because I've never had a job, a large corporate or a company. I came from government, and yung private sector ko ngayon is a startup, or we're just trying. So my day-to-day hat would range from having a client call, my team, doing payroll, sometimes collecting a check from the client. So my vertical, the concept of a vertical actually doesn't exist in my lived experience, because I've always taken on what needed. I think that's the advantage that a lot of people in startups have. People who've been in large corporate functions, I guess, don't have that much exposure on. It's very structured na yung
very structured. And it's hard not to move because it's, I wouldn't say it's rigid, but it's more of stiff. Ano siya? Because it's big on it's when you're big, it's hard to move. You're much more slower. But
it's more political.
It does. Kaya, ewan ko ba?
My journey is filled with ups and downs, and as sabi ko nung high school, sabi ko sa speech ko nung high school graduation, pangarap kong baguhin yung ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. Makakalumukha ako as early as high school. And then college, I wanted to be a professor. Then I wanted to go to government. Some things happened along the way, and it was a journey filled with accidents. But where I am right now, I think is where I needed to be. And along the way, I found that it's also where I wanted. And I don't know how long I'll stay in this particular line of work, but what's exciting for me is, as long as it's an area where I get to learn, trying to tie things up. If I'm in a position where I get to learn, and I get to share that love of learning with other people, that's a sweet spot for me. Of course, if I make money along the way, why not?
Understand. I mean, why not? Like, who would say no to money? Like, just being real. So that's your sense of fulfillment. I would say I'm the same. But let's talk to the people who are listening na they still don't know yet what their sense of fulfillment is, or they're still, let's say, exploring things. Is there any waypoints, or, like as you said, handrails that you can offer to them?
First is, don't buy into the idea that there is just one thing for you. It's not something you find magically pagising ko bukas, alam ko na yung gusto kong mangyari sa buhay ko. It's something that you learn through trial and error. The second is, it's not a job title. So one of the things we tell people is, try to map out your week, all of the things that you're doing in the week. And then put a circle on the things that energize you. For example, meron tayong mga ginagawa at work na necessary evils. For example, liquidation.
Yeah.
English, diba? Necessary evils yan. But for some people, that gives them joy. That's why if there are some people who are very good accountants, because they like those things. And it differs per person. So, what we suggest is map out your list of activities, identify the things that give you joy, and then try to talk to your supervisor or your mentor, HR, and try to see, is there a way for you to do more of that and less of the things that you don't like or are not good at. When I was in government, actually ako yung nag-request to be transferred to HR. That's something unique with my career. All of my movements, ako nag-initiate. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't want to do my admin and finance work. I can do it, but I don't like it. So, can I do this instead?
Yeah.
And then, I made my case na, alam mo, pag ito yung ginawa ko, mas malaki yung value na mabibigay ko sa kumpanya. So, it's also me trying to sell. It's good for you, it's good for me. It's a win-win for us. So, tara, let's do this.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for that, Kevin. I'm sure that would become in handy, especially with the Gen Zs right now, na there are a lot of options out there and they really feel like, parang, what do you call that? Is it decision fatigue?
The paradox of choice.
Paradox of choice, correct. Yeah.
And decision fatigue.
Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I will have coffee with you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danny, and more power to this podcast. I hope na more people get to listen and take this as an opportunity to reflect on their life, on their journey, and find comfort. I think na, again, the Philippines is one of the loneliest, we are the loneliest country in Southeast Asia. And even through podcasts like this, I think na it gives people a sense of warmth and compassion. Especially, narinig nila na, hindi pala ako nag-iisa sa journey at sa pinagdadaanan.
That's true.
More power.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, I guess, follow, like, or comment down below what was the insight that you got or your takeaway from this episode. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thank you.